From the city of brotherly love, this is Shark Bite Biz with David Strausser.
You did it again. You just arrived to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your rock star wannabe host, David Strausser, and this is your place to learn how to grow a business during complete global chaos. As always, this episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsor and SAP Global Platinum partner, Sador. Check them out. They sell all SAP solutions at sador.com. Before we get into today's episode, for those that watched last week, you probably noticed that I was wearing my Toxic Twin shirt. Why? Well, because as I record this, I'm about to go out to see Aerosmith's first farewell show tour, and I got goosebumps just saying that, here in Philadelphia, because I'm recording this on Saturday. I do the intros right before the episode's always published to make them fresh, and I'm a diehard Aerosmith fan. You guys know this. So I wore Toxic Twins last week because by the time this episode airs, it would have been past the tour, so, you know, I did what I could. I had some fun with it. I hope one of you longtime listeners out there noticed I was wearing my Toxic Twin shirt. Anyways, now let's get back to today's episode. Look, it's a challenging economy. The talking heads are all saying about how this is the best economy ever, blah, blah, blah. So it's been pretty tough. I mean, I don't really buy that. I think it's been a very challenging, like I said, economy. I think it's a very tough economy. And for business, the most critical component of that is actually building a sales pipeline. So who do we have today? Mr. Dave Kahle. Dave Kahle has been in practice for 30 years. He's been the #1 salesperson in the country for 2 different companies in 2 distinct industries and selling situations. He's a high-energy, intense, world-class speaker who has presented in 5 Canadian provinces, 11 countries, and 47, but not all 50, of these United States. Dave has authored 13 books. That's incredible, including the most recent book, The Good Book on Business. Other popular titles are Question Your Way to Sales Success, 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople, and How to Sell Anything to Anyone, Anytime. So hey, without further delay, let's get Dave and Dave together. This is the Dave and Dave show today. Let's bring Dave right on in here.
Business strategy.
Dave, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
Well, I think I'm glad to be here. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyways, we have a tradition on the show. We ask every single guest the same exact thing. What's your background? What's your experience? What do you do for a living? Basically, in a nutshell, what makes Dave Dave?
So I'm a business-to-business sales expert, and what that means is I had a career in sales, 7 different sales positions. I became #1 salesperson in the nation for 2 of those companies in 2 totally different industries. And then a long time ago, decided to go and practice for myself. So I became, a guy who helped companies sell better, business-to-business companies. And I've been doing that for 35 years, written 13 books, spoken in 47 states and 11 countries, and that's what I do.
You're still missing 3. What 3 are you missing?
Well, so Alaska, Vermont, and Maine.
Alaska, Vermont, and Maine. Well, I think Vermont would be easy enough of a target to hit. Maine and Alaska, I can see where that could be a little bit difficult. But come on, man, you've got to find some way to hit those last 3 states so you can say that you spoke in all 50 states.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe.
Is it on your to-do list?
No, honestly, it really isn't. It's I'm more interested in helping sales forces, no matter where they are, as opposed to some geographical check the box kind of thing.
So let's talk about sales, because you just said that's what you're more interested in. I mean, how do you build a sales system to methodically and regularly grow your business? Because I think a lot of businesses struggle with that in a way that they're able to repeat. Yes, no 2 customers are alike for many businesses. I mean, there may be similarities, but every business is run different. And if you're doing B2B sales, how do you get that sales system that's able to be copied over and used and again and again?
It begins with understanding the customer and the customer's buying process and who the customers are and so on. So every sales system begins with a knowledge of the customer. But there is a basic sort of process that underlines everything that a business-to-business salesperson does. And that is, again, keeping in mind it's all about the customer. There are several steps of the sales process. Number one is identifying suspects. You have to identify suspects before anything else happens. The second step is to turn those suspects into prospects. Then a prospect is a company or a person who can buy what you're offering, who can pay for it, And then the most difficult step is moving a prospect to a customer. And a customer is somebody who gives you money. When money changes hands, then everything changes. Relationship's now totally different. The next step, and a lot of people stop there, but the next step is to turn some of those customers into clients. And that's the word I use for someone who buys repetitively over and over again. And yet we're still not done, because the last step in the process is to move some of those clients into partners. And a partner is an account that buys everything they can from you, or almost everything they can from you. They're very loyal to you and so on. So those steps of the process are true for everybody. It doesn't matter what you sell or who you sell to. You still have to move people methodically closer and closer into a committed economic.
Moving them through the pipeline is how I would put that.
It's another way to put it. Yeah, I use my terms, but yeah, that's a way to say it. Yeah.
Now, one thing you touched on a little bit was kind of what I would view as qualifying budget, stuff like that. What tips do you have? Because I think a lot of people in the sales industry kind of get nervous around asking, like, hey, how much money do you have to spend? And my personal trick is I always ask them, like, hey, look, I'm going to ask you 2 tough questions. And these 2 tough questions are, so that I know that we're in the same ballpark. Okay. Do you have a budget defined? If so, what is that budget? Okay. And if they don't give me a number, then I flip it around based on the details that I already know from qualifying them. And I say, hey, rough estimate, this is kind of where I think we would be, but we have to do more digging to go through the rest of the process to be sure. Is that something you guys can afford? And a lot of times it'll be dead, or it's going to move forward from that point on. What's your trick around that? Is that a good approach? I mean, give feedback on what I just said, and also tell me your style as well, too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very appropriate approach. And if it works for you, good for you. The idea, I have a term I use for that, and some people call it their spend or their wallet. I call it QPC, which is quantified purchasing capacity. And quantified purchasing capacity in my system is the answer to this question. If this account bought everything they could from you in the next 12 months, how much would that be? So you got an objective measurement that you can use to compare one account to another, because it's the same time frame, So number one, what I tell people, you collect QPC, you don't create it. So that number that the spend is out there. I mean, it's in every account. You just have to go get it. And the best way to do that is to ask. So that's but people say, well, they won't tell me, and that's right, they won't. But you'll knock off about half of them, who will tell you.
And that's where, when they don't tell you, that's where my go-to strategy is. Then I flip it around based off what I know to try to qualify or disqualify them. Is that a good approach?
Oh, that's exactly right. There is always some measurable thing you can capture that you can put a formula on. So for example, I'm working with people who sell to plumbers, for example, supplies to plumbers. Well, how many trucks do they have? And there's a formula. If they have if they have a truck, they have X number. That truck needs X number of purchases to support it. So if they won't tell you how much they're going to spend, you say, well, how many trucks do you have? You say, well, 10. Okay, 10 times whatever your number is. There you go. There's always some measurement you can collect that's much easier to collect, and then you can just put a formula on it, and that gives you to a real close approximation to QPC. So you're right on track, David.
That's excellent to hear. I love being validated. Boost that ego right up. Thank you, Dave. So, I mean, funny story. I've said this a few times in the show, but I've never been one. I kind of organically learned sales just by being in the trenches. And one day I kept seeing this book, The Little Red Book of Selling by Jeffrey Gitomer, everywhere. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a sign. I picked up the book, I read it, and I'm like, holy cow, I am literally doing every single thing in this book, like not to a T, but for the most part, he just has it more well-defined as an outline for me. And I'm like, I guess I am doing things pretty close to being right. And I am on the right track. And that gave me a good like confidence boost right there in how I was able to sell and, the sales success that I've had during my career. So I guess the next topic I wanted to ask you about was, we just talked about kind of prospecting, sales cycle, qualifying customers, stuff like that. So even when they're going through that, how do we really improve the sales team's performance?
Well, there's this concept of best practices for salespeople, and there is a world of best practices, and Gittimer's book is one expression of that. But there is a set of best practices for salespeople, and very few salespeople have ever been exposed to them. Most of the world of sales are self-taught, just like you've been, and that's okay, but it can only take you so far. At some point, you need to understand what you don't know, and most salespeople don't know what they don't know because they're in the trenches, So exposure to the best practices of the business to business salespeople. For example, we do a little assessment, what we call behavioral assessment, 54 best practices. So take 54, yeah, best practices, yeah. So on all of these. You can do some of them fairly well, you can do some of them not so well, but there is room to grow on almost every single practice within the world of business to business salespeople. And so we identify them and help them grow.
Nobody's perfect, even myself.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I know, I do a lot of self-reflection as far as, hey, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What should I keep doing? What should I never do again? But I do that with every sales cycle that I go through, and it helps me learn. It helps me evolve. It helps me be a better salesperson.
Yes. We certainly advocate that with an additional caveat on it. And that is, say, how did I do? Okay. How did I do relative to what? See, in the world of sales, there's hard to find a standard to compare yourself with. Like, for example, if you're a baseball player, you can see the greatest baseball players in the world every Sunday. You can, same with football, same with all these other things. Where does a salesperson go to see a model of good sales? What does great sales look like? So there's no model out there. So we have a model. We have something we call the Kahle Way business to business selling system, and we teach the best practices. So yeah, actually, self-reflection relative to a standard is really the best, is a great habit.
And that's incredible insight there. Now, here's a tough question. I'm going to put you on the spot, okay? And there is a lot of pseudo gurus out there for salespeople, like, oh, well, I sold this and did that, but really their knowledge is limited. They don't have that real life in the trench learning, or professional coaching ability that they got that makes them really true experts to go out and teach others. And I don't know, I feel they're kind of scammy. Okay. What separates them from somebody like you?
Breadth of knowledge, breadth of experience, and understanding of sales in a broader way. And, I mentioned, when you asked me to introduce myself, I mentioned I had 7 different sales jobs. And I saw sales from a wide variety, from house to house sales to business sales to huge hospitals, everything in between. And so I got to view sales differently.
You and me are very similar like that. Like I had until I got into the industry that I'm in now, my resume was all over the place because I just couldn't find where I couldn't find that niche. I was soul seeking, like what industry do I want to be in? And it took me a while to get where I'm at in the ERP world with SAP. And now that I'm here, I'm going to be like a lifer. Yeah, maybe I end up changing companies. I doubt it because I love the company I'm at right now. But, I'm a lifer as far as this industry goes and with SAP. But I did go, hopping around trying to find industry to industry, roof sales, everything, you name it, I've done it.
So you have a breadth, like I do, you have a breadth of knowledge about sales. And, a lot of the guys who call themselves sales gurus have had success in some one industry or one company. and really don't have an understanding of sales in a broader sense, other than their own life experience, which is limited.
Okay. Let's talk then. Continuing on this subject, but another segment of it is training development of sales reps. Like, what is your best practice as far as being able, like, for example, I have a new sales rep starting September 1st, okay, which probably around the time this episode will be coming out, and really talented, but doesn't have SAP experience. I mean, what's the best way training, developing somebody like her for our industry that kind of knows our industry, but has never directly worked in our industry?
I have two pieces of training and development. First piece is what I call training. Development, something separate. I'll talk about that in a minute. But training is creating new skills in a person. So you train them in the skills and the processes and the practices that they need to be successful. You don't assume that they have them. So we have a tool that we've created over the years that we call a learning list. And a learning list is basically just a list of the things they need to know to represent you. When they take a business card with your name on it out into the world, they need to have a certain minimum standard of knowledge and skills before they can represent you. So you create a learning list, and by the way, we've got a free download of the learning list, tells you how to do it on my website. But you basically bring them up to a minimum standard of competency, and you don't let them out there until they have a minimum. And so that's training. And that's, again, you just ask yourself, what are the core things this person needs to know and needs to be able to do before they represent me? Step one. And that could be, anywhere from a couple of days to several weeks before they gather that. And that their first focus is to make sure that they have the skills and the practices and the process to be successful. I have a little story that illustrates this, I think. Okay, good. So here's this is so telling. So my youngest daughter wanted to be, after she graduated from high school, she wanted to be an EMT. So we sent her to EMT school, and she went through school. And then at the end, she has to take a computer exam to prove that she knew it. And she had to do a physical exam where they actually take blood pressure and stuff like that to prove that she could do it. So she did. We sent off the results, waited to see if she passed. And she did. She got a letter from the authorities saying, here's your certificate. You are now authorized to be a basic EMT, which is the lowest level, minimum wage job. Here's what the letter said. Congratulations, you're now a basic. And then it said, as you know, over the next 24 months, you must find, enroll in, successfully complete, and document 30 hours of continuous improvement training, or we'll take your certificate. Yeah. Now wait a minute, that's a minimum wage job. But there's standards. There's a minimum acceptable standard, and there is the expectation of continuous development. That's another thing. So, and I just say, if that's what we require of a minimum wage EMT, how come we can't require that of a salesperson? A minimum standard, a minimum set of competencies. So that's training. You got to train them first, and then you develop them.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, the problem is a lot of companies, I feel, don't want to invest in that in their sales reps. They feel that the sales reps should just know that. And I'm not talking about my company specifically, just so everybody knows that. I'm talking about other companies out there, other ones I've worked for in my past. They just haven't felt like it, or they maybe did it once and got the wrong person in there, and it was a total waste, and really nothing helped their team. And I think that's a problem worth talking about too.
Well, I suppose it's that problem that supports me, at least in part, is that people aren't good at that, and they would rather think that they're hiring someone who has all the skills they need rather than help to embed those skills in the person. And a lot of people don't know how to do it, so they just close their eyes to it and assume, because it feels good, that this person is going to be successful as a salesperson without them putting anything in.
I specifically look for people that it doesn't matter if they're senior, if they're intermediate, or if they're a newbie. If they have all the tools and they have the ethic, willing to go out there, just get things done, I will put all the time that they need into them. But they have to be coachable and willing to do it and actually execute on their side.
Yeah, that's right. So if I can go back to your original question, training and development. So I talked about training. Development is what happens after someone's trained. Like, again, go back to my daughter. You have to do 30 hours on your own, 30 hours. So we take a salesperson who has been trained in the basics and develop them forever. And that means we continually expose them to the best practices and expect that they will continually grow, and there's some benchmarks out there. For example, for a business-to-business sales force, the question is, how much should you spend to train and develop them? And the answer is about 4% of payroll. I mean, that's a standard that's been evolved over the years. 4% of payroll.
4% of payroll for the sales team or for the sales individual?
Both. So let's say you have a salesperson, make it simple, making $100,000 a year. So you're going to spend $4,000 over the course of the year to continually develop them. And there's another way to express that, and that's half a day once a month, 4 hours once a month, not in product knowledge, but in specific training and specific sales skills, asking questions, closing a sale, learning about the customer, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So development lasts forever, never ends, goes on forever.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, even the best of the best have people, they're still able to learn things. Nobody knows everything. And also, I don't think there's a person on this earth that can sell to any single person on this earth. Like there's got to be someone out there that no matter what, they won't buy something from me because I'm missing some skill. And, I only find that by development and self-discovery and analyzing things and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. And, development's a never ending process. But here's something. A lot of people think because the people who make those investments in people are managers and leaders and so on, and they think that the salespeople are investing in themselves because they invested in themselves. They project to the salespeople. The hard truth is this: if you randomly select 20 salespeople, do a little survey, you will discover that only one of those 20 salespeople has spent $25 of his own money on his own improvement in the last 12 months. 1 out of 20. Yeah. So if you think the salespeople are doing it, you're wrong. They're not. So if you're a sales manager, sales leader, CEO, whatever, vice president of sales, you have to intervene. You have to provide development because they're not doing it on their own. I mean, 1 out of 20 is, but not the rest.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And you will get no disagreement from my end. Usually I'll start brand new sales reps off. I started this a few years ago after I read the little red book of selling. And if they're a little bit green to selling, but they know tech and they can understand business processes and all that stuff, like, okay, you got all the tools. And if I see that they have the charisma and the personality, like, hey, you make a great sales rep, it's like, buy this book, read it, let's talk about it. And that's where I start their learning, training, development process with me under me. And so far, I'd say we've been pretty successful as far as that goes. But there is one more topic I wanted to jump into before we end it up, which is let's talk about some of the most effective B2B sales principles, practices, and even some processes that companies and salespeople and VP of sales and businesses alike can all kind of put in place to help them sell more?
Well, that's a big question. So let me give you a big answer first, and that is create a selling system. And again, we have a course we call the business to business selling system. So if you want a simple answer, there's a simple answer. But very specifically, there's a couple practices that have been proven to be highly impactful. I'm asked from time to time, if you could only instill one thing in a salesperson, a business salesperson, to make him more effective, what would be the one practice, the one principle? And my response is actually there's two. Number one is to target and prioritize your accounts based on potential. That we have a system to do that. But when someone embraces that and creates an understanding of the potential of an account, invests their time where it gets the greatest potential, that can multiply, absolutely transform a sales force and multiply the impact. You're not going to believe this, but the most common response I get a couple of years after a person or a team has done this, invested in identifying and investing their time in the highest potential accounts, the most common testimony I'll get is triple. They've tripled their business. Yeah. So that's number one and it's a matter of, there's a whole process to do it well, but you invest your sales time where it will get the biggest return. Amazingly, it does. So that's number one. Number two is asking better questions. That is a fundamental skill. I've got one of my books is devoted just to that. It's called Question Your Way to Sales Success. Asking better questions is a skill that a salesperson can use throughout the sales process, and they can always do it better. So
can I jump in one quick second? That's one thing that we constantly do. Between me, I'm VP of Biz Dev at my company, and then my boss is the SVP of sales. And that's one thing that when we're going, whether it's sales meetings or the one-on-ones, well, did you ask this to the customer? Did you ask that for the customer? And sales reps be like, no. And then next call, they're asking that. And then we build a plan around that. And I totally agree with what you're saying about asking the right questions.
And not only asking the right questions, but asking questions in the right way. So there's two pieces of that,
Right. Framing is important.
Absolutely. And I use this example, as there's always two meanings in a question. One is the intellectual and the other is the emotional. So the intellectual is what you're asking for. The emotional is how it makes people feel. So here's an example. Say your first call in a new account and you say, who makes the decision here? Now, intellectually, it's a perfectly appropriate question. Emotionally, it's horrible. Because what you're saying when you ask that question is, okay, I understand you're a flunky, so tell me who's important. So, so you just change it. Again, this is the thing. You can ask questions better and you can ask better questions. So instead of saying who makes the decision here, you say something like, who beside yourself will be involved in the decision? You're going to get the same information, but it's emotionally, it's easier. See, it's a more.
It's not what you're saying; it's how you say it that matters.
It's both. It's both the words that you use and what you ask for, but also the way that you ask it. Equally important. So ask better questions. Ask questions better. Both.
Okay, that's perfect. Do you have anything else to say on this topic? Anything else you think that's really need to know for people out there struggling?
What I teach people is this. First of all, it's a never ending. You can always get better at it. I do a 2-day workshop just on asking questions, for example. So there's a lot of stuff. But the number one thing is pay attention to the language. And if you're going to be using a question over and over, prepare your major questions word for word. When you're not in the sales call, when you have time to think, without the pressure of the moment, prepare your major questions word for word, and you'll find your results improve.
That is amazing. So I know you said you wrote 13 books, right?
Yeah.
Lucky 13. What was the latest book that you wrote? And please tell us where everybody can find out more about you, more about Dave Kahle, more about your business, and the best place to reach you at.
Yeah. Well, the best place to reach me is I have several websites, but DaveKahle.com. So
and that's
Dave,
Kahle.
Kahle.com. Yeah. And everything we talk about is available somewhere there. But so 13 books. The most recent sales book is the one that has gone worldwide, and I'd recommend it everybody here. How to sell anything to anyone, anytime. It's about sales process. What we've been talking about, sales process and sales systems, and that book's gone worldwide. It's available in 8 different languages, 20 different countries. It's a worldwide book. So that's the one I would recommend for everybody. And then we can niche it a little bit. I have a book called 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople. And there's I mentioned targeting and prioritize based on potential. There's a chapter really detailing just that in the time management book. That also has gone worldwide. And then the third one that I would recommend is, we've mentioned it already, Question Your Way to Sales Success. Just all about questions in the sales process. How to ask questions better, how to ask better questions. So there's three that I think you started. And again, we have lots of free resources on the website, and I would encourage everybody. I write what we call e-zines, which are like newsletters, publications where every e-zine has an article by me, a podcast, and a YouTube video. And we just send it out weekly. It's free. So Sell Better is the one for salespeople. Lead Better is the one for sales managers. And go to my website, right on the front page of the website. You can sign up for those. They're free, and get a taste of what I've learned over the years for both those.
Well,
groups.
I'll be definitely signing up for the Lead Better. And as everybody out there watching or listening to this show knows, we will have a link to Dave's website right down below in the description, right below the little kind of excerpt we put there introducing him. But Dave, hey, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your knowledge. And I love how you help businesses grow by teaching sales.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, cheers. That was an incredible chat with Dave, right? That man knows his stuff. First, though, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it's sparked those warm and fuzzies, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But if you really want to help us out, because you know Shark Bite Biz is the greatest kept secret in the world of small business, please share us out to your friends, your colleagues, anywhere you dwell on the interwebs. I would love to see nothing more than Dave Kahle and Shark Bite Biz out there trending. Now let's get back to the real rock star of this show, our guest, Mr. Dave Kahle. I really loved how Dave talked about building a sales system to methodically and regularly grow your business. You know, in these hard times, like we talked about in the intro, having a dedicated, tried, tested, and true sales system, it's really critical. I mean, you should just not have your salespeople out there winging it. You need to have structure. You need to have form. You need to have a way moving forward. Anyways, awesome stuff, Dave. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experience, and I love how you help people sell, especially because I am a VP of sales. So that is incredible. Question of the day. What do you think of sales system? Overrated, or do you prefer to wing it? Let us know your comment down there below on YouTube or on Spotify. You want to be on the show? Interviews at Shark Bite Biz. If you're watching on YouTube, you can join the channel. $3 a month. You can become a baby shark. Support the show on YouTube or on Spotify. And again, shout out to our sponsor, Sador. If you're in the shop for an SAP solution, go to sador.com. I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz, and we see you all next episode. Ciao.
You just experienced Shark Bite Biz with David Strausser. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the show to help us spread the word about personal, professional, and business growth. Want to be on the show? Send an email to interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. A special shout out to our sponsor, SAP Platinum Partner, Sador. Get off QuickBooks and move your business to the next level. Reach out for more info. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.